Morning and welcome back. My name's Simon, and in this video I'm going to be looking at building up your fire. This is part 4 of my little mini series on making fire, and today we're looking at building your fire. Apologies for the racket the cows are making in the background. There's a field opposite the wood that I'm in, and I think it must be close to milking time or something or other. I don't know, but they're very vocal. So there's a few things to consider before you start building your fire, and one of them is to do a little sort of risk assessment, really, of where you are. You're obviously going to be building a fire on the ground. You need to make sure that that fire isn't going to start a forest fire or spread, or there are considerations that you need to take into account. Firstly, whereabouts are you? If you're in open, dry grassland, it's probably not a good idea to have a fire on the ground at all, because the wind can blow, that can catch onto the surrounding grass, and it'll just spread like wildfire, literally. The other thing to consider is what there is on the ground. If you're in coniferous woodland, for example, there's a good chance that the ground in the forest is going to be covered in pine needles, quite a thick layer of pine needles probably, which obviously are combustible. So you need to make sure that you clear away those pine needles and all that sort of duff and get down to a good earth base. So once you've selected the tinder that you're going to use, and you have an idea of how you're going to light your fire, it's time to go and collect your firewood. So we're going to need kindling of varying sizes, really, ranging from very thin, sort of pencil lead thickness, up to pencil and finger thick pieces, and then you're going to need your fuel wood. Now, really what we're looking for here is dead standing wood. And what I mean by that, as I'm sure you already know, is wood that is not on the ground, okay, but is dead. It has fallen off other trees, limbs that have fallen off, branches that have fallen off, or whole trees, but that have fallen and have got trapped by other trees as they've fallen, so they're not on the ground. And ideally, as vertical as possible. The more vertical they are, generally the drier they are. They might be a little bit wet at the bottom where they're still touching the ground, but there'll be plenty of dry wood in there. We don't want to be using wood that's fallen onto the ground, because the ground is damp, it'll just absorb moisture, it'll be full of moisture, and rotten and punky and just no good for burning. If it's thin enough, if you snap the bit of wood, if it's got that nice dry crisp snap sound to it, that's generally good for burning. Different woods burn at different rates. Some woods burn very hot and produce a good bed of embers, but good coal base. Some woods produce a lot of flame, but burn out very quickly and don't have the same heat output. So it really depends on what you're going to be using your fire for. If you're going to be cooking over your fire, you're ideally going to need lots of heat, okay? And the embers are going to be important, because you don't want to burn your food, you just want to cook it. Likewise, if you're going to be sitting around your fire in the evening, so you need it for heat, you're going to be wanting woods which burn slowly and produce a lot of heat. So you're going to be looking at hardwoods like oak and ash, hazel, chestnut, birch. Okay, these are all good woods that produce a lot of heat. If you're boiling water, you're going to need flame more than anything else. Okay, so the flame can lick around your pot and boil that water very quickly. So you're probably going to be looking more at softwoods like pine and spruce. Larch, sycamore is also quite a flamey burn, but burns very quickly. You may have seen in previous videos, there's a little island that I like to canoe out to and camp on. Well, that island, the only wood there is willow and alder, and they're both well known for being not particularly good woods to burn, because they don't produce an awful lot of heat. They're quite smoky, and yeah, they just burn very quickly. but I have no choice. You know, that's what there is available, so that's what I tend to burn. So you can use the poorer woods. It really depends on what there is around you. Okay, let's go and find some wood. Well, it's true what they say. Making a fire warms you up 3 ways. First of all, you get hot collecting the wood. Secondly, you get hot preparing your wood, cutting it. And then obviously thirdly, from the fire itself. I've got my kindling over here. This is the smallest of my kindling. This is, you know, everything from sort of like pencil lead thickness up to pencil thickness. Slightly bigger kindling, sort of finger sized, thumb sized, and then up to my fuel wood, starting with the sort of intermediate size, and then slightly bigger stuff. Now I rarely burn wood that's thicker than about my wrist, so I've got a log here, for example, and these bits are quite large. They're also a little bit damp on the outside because we had a lot of rain yesterday. So what I tend to do with bigger stuff like that is I'll split it with my axe into halves or even into quarters, just to give it a better chance of catching, and that will sort of go on with my intermediate stuff. Whenever I build a fire, I always like to put down a platform of wood first to keep my tinder pile up off the damp ground and just to give it every chance of getting going. This isn't a waste of wood because obviously this all ends up getting consumed by the fire anyway and adding to your coal bed. But it just keeps the tinder off the ground and it allows a little bit of airflow. You know, air can get in between these sticks here. So if you asked a child to draw a picture of a campfire, there's a good chance it would look something like this. This is the wigwam or teepee lay, and you start off with your kindling, your tinder and your kindling in the middle, and then you build the rest of the fire up in a sort of teepee fashion like this, with all the sticks leading up to a central sort of point. It's not my favourite way of making a fire. What tends to happen is it burns very quickly, it consumes all of your fuel very quickly, and it's also very unstable. So once that bit in the middle burns, it'll either collapse or this lot will stay together and it will just burn itself out in the middle, and you'll have a big void in the middle of you know, nothing. And yeah, I don't rate this method of making a fire particularly, but it's easy enough to get going. So this is the log cabin lay, and this is the way that I was taught as a child when I was in the Cubs and the Scouts. This is the way I was taught to make a fire, and you have your tinder and your kindling in the middle, and then you build your fire up over the top of it like a log cabin. It's very easy to get going. You can obviously make this ahead of time and cover it, you know, and then put your ignition source in, and it will go, and it burns quite well. And obviously once that lot burns down, you can just add more of your fuel wood to it. It can be a little bit unstable though, as it tends to burn, because obviously you've got sticks resting on sticks and the sticks are cylindrical. They do have a tendency to roll a bit, so you might find that like that, the whole thing can collapse. Okay, so you've got to be careful of that. That's one of the downsides to it. So my favourite way of laying a fire is the sort of lean-to method. And you start off with your platform. You have another brace across the back here. It just enables you to keep your next level of fuel, which is the kindling, up off the flames and hopefully stop it from smothering it. So I'm going to go in with my smaller stuff, and I can adjust that by lifting up that brace at the back. If I think it's smothering it, you can lift it up a little bit and get some more air in there, just to help it go. Okay, and then you can go in with your next lot, and I generally break the next lot into two halves and lean one that way and one the other way, and just let that build up. I really like this kind of fire lay, just because it's very simple. You know, you don't have to build anything up. You're literally just putting on handfuls of your kindling to get the thing going. It's easy to maintain. It's stable. There's nothing to collapse because it's all leaning against other parts of the fire, and you can just add to it. You know, you can probably see down here. This was the original platform. It's now starting to burn. Okay, it's just adding to the coals at the bottom of the fire. This is a good one for cooking on. You know, once these larger bits have burnt down, you're going to have a really nice bed of embers in there for cooking on, and you can just level it all down, create a flat area. You can drag some coals out for cooking on if you wanted to cook slightly away from the more fierce heat over here. You know, if you were frying or whatever, or roasting in the embers, you can drag those coals out just a little bit and cook on them there. Right, the next lay I want to look at is a lay called the upside down fire, and as its name suggests, it is a fire upside down. So rather than having your tinder and small kindling at the bottom and working up to bigger, loading your bigger stuff on afterwards, you start with your bigger stuff on the bottom, and then you build up, getting gradually smaller, to your tinder on the top. You light it, and the idea is that it burns down from the top, and because the heat from a fire is radiated out in all different directions, including downwards, it dries out wood and preheats the wood as it burns down, which results in a much more efficient burn, less smoke, more heat. You know, it all sounds good. I've never done it before, so this is a bit of an experiment. I thought we'd give it a go. So the fire's burnt its way through the kindling. It's now down to the smallest of the fuel wood and starting to burn. It's working. And I haven't had to do anything. It's totally maintenance free. I literally just lit it once that was going. That's just sorting itself out.
So this is really a light now. It's burnt down to the bigger, to sort of this level and beyond. I think it's probably just starting to burn the bottom layer, which is obviously all preheated. Yeah, I mean, that's hot. The wood is hot. So that's up to temperature already. It's a really clean burn, there's very little smoke, and I haven't had to do anything to it. It has taken a bit of time to get to this point, so it took a while for that kindling to really get going, but now it is going. I mean, I wouldn't have to do very much to this at all. I'd probably just put a few larger logs on, and that would just go, and that would go for hours, I think. So, yeah, slow to get going, but a slow burner. And one of the most important things about having a fire is making sure you put it out again afterwards. You know, there's a lot of forest fires around the world started by people not making sure their fire is out. It doesn't take a lot of effort. You can put a fire out, you can make sure it's out, you can make sure there's no danger of it combusting later on. And, you know, it's nice to leave the area where you've been as it was when you arrived. See, I've got a few bits of unburnt wood in here, so I'm going to deal with in a minute. And then I like to dig down, because obviously that heat has radiated right into the ground, and it's super hot underneath as well. You may well find that there's little grass roots and things that are burning under the ground, smouldering under the ground. You want to make sure that they're all well extinguished. Any unburnt bits of wood like this, I tend to, once they're completely out, I'm going to put some more water on them in a minute because they're still smouldering. Once they're completely out, I tend to distribute them around in the area that I'm in. Just chuck them off into the undergrowth. So that's now cool enough for me to put my hands in, as you can see, so I'm satisfied that nothing there is going to catch fire. What you're seeing coming off now is not smoke, that's just steam because I put water on. And there's still a bit of residual heat in the ground, but yeah, I'm quite satisfied. Well, thanks for watching, and thanks for watching the series. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm no expert. You know, these set of videos are really just about what I do, what I've had success with, what I enjoy doing. That's it, really. You know, it's not a set of instructional videos on how to make fire. It's just what I do, and hopefully, you know, you might have been able to pick up some useful tips from it, perhaps. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.